Welcome to the Momentum Ministry Partners podcast. This podcast is designed to provide momentum in our God-given roles of leadership as we partner together to equip today's Christian leaders for tomorrow's opportunities. Whether you're a pastor, youth leader, ministry volunteer, parent, or student, we want to be your go-to and most trusted resource for equipping and encouragement when it comes to your ministry and leadership influence. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to another Momentum podcast. This episode is for you. If you're struggling with burnout, we want to talk. We'd love to be a resource. My name is Eric. I'm the host of today's episode. Jeff is also here. And Jeff,
I was raising my hand saying I'm struggling with burnout. I was hoping you were going to help me.
I was going to say we can probably relate in maybe areas that we could go deep here, Jeff.
Yeah, it is seriously
real. And our goal, honestly, for this episode and every episode that Momentum does, we want to be genuine. We want to be authentic. We want to add value to you and your ministry. So we're both ministry professionals. We have been in ministry for a long time. If you didn't check out last week's episode, go check that one out about what is the context of being a ministry professional. What does that all entail? Some good things in there. Today, we want to talk maybe about the other side of the coin. What do you do when you hit the wall and you can't do it anymore? You've worked so hard and you just hit that burnout. So, Jeff, maybe let's just start with kind of defining that. For a lot of people, I think we use that term burnout in ministry, especially with ministry professionals. We hear it all the time with pastors. What are maybe early warning signs? How do you know that you actually are burnt out versus I'm just tired and I need a nap and I haven't taken a day off in a couple of weeks? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think when when I get a nap and a day off and it doesn't recharge me at all is one of those things. I think when we get cynical, I think when we get insecure, I know that's a big one for me. I feel insecure suddenly. I lose my confidence. When I lose clarity, I'm usually some level of burned out. When I feel trapped, if I could do something else, I would, but I need a job, and so I feel trapped. When I'm doing things out of routine and not passion, when I have no vision for the future, when new ideas overwhelm me and frustrate me. I could go on and on and on, but when I start, burnout's not going to usually start it doesn't look like depression at the beginning. Yeah. It looks like my thoughts and my motives, and they don't pay me enough for this job, and I cannot stand being around that person anymore. That it's those kind of things where the things you were passionate about, the reasons that you responded to God's call for ministry start to be lost because you're fried.
Yeah, you lose your joy. You forget the why you're doing what you do. Yeah. We could probably go on and on, but Jeff, let's just speak to it. Some people just pulled over their car because they're like, oh my word, they see me.
Yeah.
So what do you do if that actually is you and you just said yes to all of those things? What do you do? We're not, hear us. We're not saying go resign, but what are the steps that you would encourage somebody in that season of life or in that spot to take? What are the next steps?
The first thing I would do is take a nap. Literally, because sometimes we think we're burned out, and it fascinates. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm unbalanced, but it's amazing to me how dark I can go and how quickly I can go dark. And I need a nap. I might need relational energy poured into me. So I need Heidi to hang out with me. I need time with the kids. I need a friend to encourage me, those kind of things. So I think you always start with the lowest hanging fruit of rest, a little bit of time away. Did I actually just have a bad couple of weeks? And is there any closure to that? Um, we just came a few weeks ago off of Momentum Youth Conference, and it's amazing that Saturday night is one of the most spiritually intense, joyful nights of my year. And by Sunday on my way home, I want to quit and I'm discouraged.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that what that is that's exhaustion, and I'm old and I can't go without sleep the way that I used to.
Yeah.
And so always start at that place. The second thing I think you need to do is, I know this has helped me, is I will sometimes get my calendar out and I will go back, and what I often find is that there's a reason I'm exhausted. And when I look at my calendar, I'm like, oh, I have been working 65, 70 hours a week. There was this emergency. There was this problem at home. My dog did die. The dishwasher quit working. And you go back and you look at the last couple of months and you're like, I'm not nuts. Like, I'm really, really spent right now. And for some reason, knowing that has always helped me a little bit. Like, it's instead of like, I hate ministry and everybody that I work with and the people that God calls me to pastor, I'm like, I probably do need to not preach one weekend, to not show up at church that weekend, to spend a few days at home. And I need to collect myself a little bit. Now, what's helpful over time, I can almost always tell you when that's coming. And so I've learned to build my schedule that way. I know that there's going to be a late night or a long time. Like, I'll give you, for instance, when we do Momentum Youth Conference, I know I'm going to come home exhausted. We might sleep 4 hours a night, maybe 5. It's just, and it's all so much fun, but it's like nuts. There's pressure because we're in charge. So you feel that weight. Like, suddenly I got, 2,000 children that I'm responsible for ultimately. I learned to take the day after conference off, and I learned to sleep in. I learned to mow my grass because I wasn't home for 8 or 9 days, and now the yard actually is stressing me out. And I learned to start my week on Tuesday instead of Monday. And I learned that I need to keep that week light. No evening meetings. Da, 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 da. So you learn to get into these rhythms, and it helps to manage that time.
Jeff, I think what you're saying is good, and I want to highlight, maybe exclamation mark, couple things. The first one is understanding that there are seasons of ministry. And there are going to be seasons where your ministry, the Christmas, Easter, there are seasons where in pastoral ministry, it's just heavy. Summer, if you're in youth ministry, you may have a mission trip followed by a youth conference, followed by XYZ. And then when those things do happen in the middle of it, the hot water heater breaks, your air conditioning stops working. Hypothetically speaking, just throwing
your basement floods.
Yeah.
You just making this up, Eric?
Like, then what do you do with those things? And so I love what you're saying, to go back and look at your calendar and like track, like be honest with yourself about the things that you've been carrying. And that's maybe the other thing. Are there things that you're carrying that you shouldn't be carrying? Has somebody else's emergency become your emergency and you've been carrying that for them? Or you've been trying to fix everything and be the savior, and you forgot that Jesus is actually the savior.
Yeah.
And so assessing that, evaluating that is a big deal. Jeff, I think the other piece of this that I would highlight that you're saying, but I want to make sure that we understand: communicate, speak up,
Yeah.
tell somebody. So Jeff, what does that look like? Again, if you're on a staff and maybe you're not the senior pastor, the lead person, maybe you are. How do you communicate that process of, hey, I need to raise my hand, I need some time, I need to take a weekend off? How do you communicate that, and maybe who do you communicate that to? It's probably not a
I,
bomb you drop in the middle of a staff meeting.
yeah, I think what you said was so wise, that you evaluate it first, right? Because this is what happens. Ministry is unique in that we blame ministry for all of our stress. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad or even why that is. I have to think about it, but we do it. So
Hmm.
when the air conditioner and the water tank breaks and you are under financial pressure, that's when you usually are like, the church doesn't pay me enough.
You're right.
Like, but the church may it always bites when the air conditioning and the water tank go out. It's got nothing to do with the church,
You're right.
but it's unique how we'll look at it that way. The when you feel a time crunch, you're like, I never have any time because I'm in ministry. I'm like, or because two of your kids play and travel soccer and you're busy every evening. So neither one of those things are right or wrong, but for some reason we tend to blame the ministry for it. So I think that's a huge thing. So what I think is, when it comes to verbalizing that, is think it through and then do your best to verbalize the real issue. And sometimes I think I really, really believe strongly and value my friendships with other people in ministry. We do live a unique life.
Yeah.
We do have unique pressures. Our work is also uniquely personal. So we don't get to leave it. And when somebody hates the youth pastor, they're actually talking about me. When they're like, your church, I'm like, you're talking about me. You're not talking about the church. So having other ministry professionals to talk to is a big deal, and in an environment that is both free and spiritual. So I've got buddies. I complain to them. I gripe at them. I make morbid jokes with them, and then they also stop and pray with me.
Right.
Right. So there's like a paradigm or a continuum of those things that I think is huge. I think we have to be careful sometimes with our families that we don't just vent on them, because we feel better when we vomit out our stresses and then they own them and they don't have a context to do anything about it. So I think that's huge. If you are a senior pastor, you're probably under a board. And if you're a staff person, you're under a senior pastor. This is what I find with burnout. That I think one of the number one reasons we burn out is because we're working in places of our weaknesses. So if I can go to my senior pastor as an example and say, Pastor, me doing administrative work drains the life out of me. The ministry is bigger now or more complicated. I need help. And that help may be a set of volunteers. That help may be a part-time, administrative assistant. But if I can identify what's draining the life out of me, Eric, I'm looking at you because we're such good friends. You could spend 24 hours a day visiting with people and investing in their lives. If you have to spend 20 minutes organizing a trip, you're like, I'm not called anymore, And so it's just stuff like that, where it's not work ethic stuff.
Yes.
I'm the same way. Like, there's things that really energize me. Leading teams and setting vision energizes me. If you make me counsel people, I mean, the life just drains out of me, right? So I think being able to identify that, and then often what leads to burnout is I'm doing too much of that. Now, everybody's a grown up. We all have to do stuff we don't like to do.
For sure.
But if that's defining your ministry, it's going to drain the life out of you. Now, ready? Sometimes that's your marriage. Sometimes that's one of your kids struggling. Sometimes that's an aging parent that you're having trouble taking care of. But if I can verbalize that, then the people around you who love you know how to support you in a different way and say those things out loud. I think the other big thing that happens with burnout is we set our schedules by obligation instead of by effectiveness. And so I like to say it this way. Every meeting, almost, I guess that's an overstatement, almost every meeting you have once a week would be just as effective if you had it every other week. Every meeting that you have every other week would be just as effective if you had it once a month. Every meeting that you have once a month would be just as effective if you had it once a quarter. And I'm a stickler for my time because it gets demanded upon. What I say is every meeting that takes an hour actually takes 45 minutes. Every 45 minutes takes a half hour. Every half hour is 15 minutes. Well, at the end of the week, I might wind up with 5 more hours, which relieves my burnout because I'm burned out because I wasn't getting enough time with my children. See how that works? So if you can identify that and verbalize that, and then you can say to your boss or to your board, hey, I'm going to have youth group like every Wednesday, but I'm going to have boys discipleship every other Tuesday morning. I'm going to meet with elders instead of meet with you guys once a week. I actually think we could meet once a month, and I could send you an email on an off week and we would accomplish all the same things. And it gets you out of your places of weaknesses. You're able to communicate what you're doing as opposed to like just dropping it. And it relieves these places of tension in your life.
So good. Yeah, I think if you're having meetings to plan a meeting, there's probably something to look at. Yeah. Jeff,
I'll say this uniquely to senior leaders. One of the things that is the most draining that a senior leader does, and one of the places that you burn out the most quickly, is preaching. You get writer's block. You're like, I don't have any new insights on this. It's every pastor when he comes to the Christmas message and the Easter message. You're like, I don't know, guys, just read it. I don't know what else to say about it. Those kind of things. So, like a way that you would change that, you would look at your elders and say, my goal is to preach 40 times a year. Well, that really alleviates some of that pressure. Now, what you want to do is you do that within vision and mission. Yeah. So because we're trying to raise up young leaders, and I'm going to let the youth pastor preach here, or elder so-and-so, or kid such and such who's in Bible college, it doesn't even mean that you're not there that weekend, but every senior leader knows that if I don't have to preach that week, I feel like I had a week off. And it lets me catch up, and it lets me focus on other priorities. So it's things like that you think differently, that I'm going to, instead of how many weekends am I allowed to be gone, I start to think about how many weekends do I actually need to preach? And actually, the people might like a different voice. When I hear a fresh voice, I listen to it differently. Maybe it's actually healthiest for the church for us to do that. If we believe in an eldership model, like that guy's not good enough to do a series, but he may be good enough to do a weekend on a certain topic, and it's actually gives authority to his spiritual leadership. So burnout, sometimes if you can verbalize, you get into other boxes and it alleviates the things that are burning you out.
Good. So good. All right. One maybe last question on this. The other side of this, when you have that day off, when you have the weekend off, when you have that space, what are you doing to do the self-care that actually re-energizes you, that actually replenishes your soul? What does that process look like for you? What practices maybe would you recommend for others?
I would recommend that you do whatever energizes you. So for me, you're going to find me on a tractor doing something physical. It energizes me. I might do that for 12 or 14 hours, and my soul is going to be refreshed. I think in your schedule, for me, we always tried to schedule like a Friday night and then a Saturday, but it was usually like in the middle of the week. So my family loves movies. So like we watch a movie, stay up a little bit late. The next morning I sleep in a little bit, and then like anything with my family or anything outside is going to energize me. You have to look, instead of saying, I have to spend time with the Lord, or I have to go on a monthly or a weekly date with my wife. Heidi and I don't go on a weekly date. We usually do a weekly project around the house because we like it. We're weird. It bonds us, right? So whatever energizes you and whatever you can do rhythmically so that you have energy at the right spot. So as a senior leader, I'm going to rhythmically do whatever lands me at a place of life, vitality, and creativity so I can preach. Because I preach 4 times a weekend. So I know that like I have to have my body in a certain spot. I have to have my sleep at a certain spot. I'm rhythmically going to produce that. If it gets interrupted by an emergency, it gets interrupted by an emergency. But if you're asking me what I'm going to do, I know a pastor friend that loves music. He writes music on his day off. Some people love to exercise. When your kids are at home, definitely your kids have to be a focal point. Of course, our marriages should. So it's whatever energizes you. I spend some of my most intimate times with Jesus on a tractor. I love it, and I'm relaxed. And now we're praying, talking. I'm listening to a podcast, whatever, or country music. Both things are close to God's heart, and that's what that is.
I love it. I think that's so wise. And honestly, sometimes as pastors, we feel guilty or maybe obligated that like on our day off, I need to spend 7 hours in the Word and prayer journal. And I'm like, honestly, maybe it's reading a book about baseball, or it's like finding a new, not Christian music that you're going to enjoy and listen to, not country music though, but those are things that maybe just to get out of the rhythm and the routine that you've been in, to clear your headspace, you can pray and enjoy the presence of the Lord through all of that. And so I love what you're saying of like, spend time with your family, double down on being outside. Like if you've been in the office all week, like get out, get something different, be purposeful with that time. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you. I think it's fun when we can talk about burnout in 23 minutes and all the world's problems. So
Boom, done.
we really do mean it. We want to take these things serious. If there are problems, if you need the safe person to talk through, if Jeff or I or anybody on our team, if we can be a resource to you in that process, please reach out. Let us know. Momentum is here for that purpose. We want to come alongside of you to encourage and equip you. So please let us know. Reach out to us. info@buildmomentum.org is our email. You can DM us on social media. This whole season, we'll be tackling some of these tough topics. If there's a topic that we can tackle that would help you or be a resource to you, let us know. We'd love to address that. and we'll find a professional that can address it. Maybe that means Jeff's not on the podcast for that week. So I don't know.
There you go.
Thanks so much, friends, for tuning into this episode. Jeff, thank you for your wisdom and sharing some of your experience in this as well.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you found it to be valuable. And if you did, would you share it with someone else in your network who might enjoy it? Also, would you please go on and subscribe, rate, and review it? That way you don't miss any more and somebody else will be able to find it too. Also, because we want to be your trusted resource, if you have a question or topic that you would like us to discuss on an upcoming episode, send that to us via email to info@buildmomentum.org, or you can send us a DM on any of our social media platforms. You can find us there at Momentum Ministry Partners. Also, if you need more information on our ministry, be sure to check out our website at buildmomentum.org. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you next time.